Hey y'all, I'm the captain, and this is Sailing on the Spectrum, where I talk about the challenges growing up with autism spectrum disorder. Welcome aboard. Today I want to talk about those on the autism spectrum and wearing clothes. Now, as you can see, I'm wearing a t-shirt. I've worn a t-shirt in pretty much every one of my videos, and if I had to bet, I probably would be in any video you saw me in. That's just kind of my usual get up. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not that I can never dress up for anything. I think I'm kind of one of those who's only dresses for weddings and funerals. But I do know that uh, even as an adult, there are certain, I guess, clothes that I just don't feel comfortable in. It doesn't mean that I can't wear certain clothes, but I know actually as a child in certain periods in my childhood especially, I became very of had a serious aversion to certain clothes or certain things I'd wear. I don't think I would have had any noticeable issues when I was probably obviously when I was an infant or when I was a toddler or even a young kid up till about maybe 6 years old or so. I do know uh, there were some occasions where I would probably need to dress up with something, and it probably was either for school, but probably for church. And there might have been a certain dress shirt that my parents just wanted me to wear, and they said I should be wearing it a certain way, and I wouldn't like it. And I remember one of the things I didn't like was having a shirt with a collar and having a button undone. I actually wouldn't feel comfortable that way. I'd feel, I don't know, there was something really, I guess, there's something very off-putting about having a button undone on my shirt. Now, that probably wouldn't be the case necessarily now as much as an adult, but although usually I don't care to have shirts that, are just, unbuttoned like that necessarily. But I usually don't wear collared shirts much anyways nowadays. But I know as a kid, I remember being, I remember actually I was probably about 7 or so, and I was just actually got to crying one day because my parents actually uh, got very like mad at me because I wasn't wearing it with that I wouldn't unbutton the collar. Like it was that much of a struggle, I guess, And I remember having to look in the mirror at it, kind of through tears. See, look at you, and then I would just hate it, And I um, remember also not liking short sleeve shirts. When if it were a collared shirt, I wouldn't want that. I'd want long sleeves, even if it were warm weather, And it was, I remember one Easter, I'd wear one of those collared shirts with short sleeves, and I think that might have been when I was, I don't know, might have been around that time, but maybe for whatever reason I was able to suck it up that day. It was for Easter. I think it was Easter '86. I can even remember the year. We would have been in Nashville, and uh, staying there with my parents, my mom's parents, uh, for a short time. Um, and I just remember pictures of us sitting on the swing, and I'd have my little um, carnation, pinned on my shirt, and I would be all right with it. But I just felt so bad wearing that. I just didn't really like myself or how I felt wearing that. Um, I remember, you know, even as I grew older, I remember just for whatever reason, I just didn't. It was just weird. clothes just felt weird to me, and they had to be, you know, specifically certain things, and it was hard for me to know or to even explain, what certain types of, let's say, material or fabric would actually make me feel the most comfortable. Uh, you know, and it was always a thing, especially I think for me because I grew up in a house where we went to church. Not that that's anything I resented. It was just the fact that we went to church and we did dress up for that. Uh, and most of there were a lot of times where I think at certain points where I had a get up for church, that I really was okay with, and I actually even wore a suit even as a small kid, or and I would, get a lot of uh smiles from the grown-ups, because of that. Look how sharp he's looking, and that kind of thing. But um I remember later when I was starting middle school, I went to a school where you had to dress up every day. And I tell you, that just got wearisome because, it's, I mean, I would wear shirts, I'd be um, dressed in pretty much church clothes, for school every day. And so, I would go to school, I mean, just not feeling all that comfortable, in whatever I was wearing. Usually I'd be, oh, okay with it, depends on, what shirt I'd had to wear that particular day. But a lot of times it just, I just felt really, I don't know how to explain it. I just felt like I was kind of in this uncomfortable sack, and, that's just, sometimes that's the way clothes can feel for those on the spectrum. Uh, it can sometimes be an issue, I've heard, especially when they later on, when maybe they have a job and they have maybe they have a certain uniform they need to wear, and the uniform's kind of scratchy or very irritating to them, and they can't really function well in it. That thankfully has never been a big issue with me, um, as a adult, and it's definitely, I think probably it was a little bit of a bigger hurdle for me to get over maybe when I was younger and maybe first starting to work at places, but not really as much. And even now, my job, I wear a uniform, but it's basically a t-shirt like I wear now is what I have to wear. And when it's cold out, like it is these days, because now it's because as I'm taping this, it's winter, I'll have another shirt I have to wear over it. And I don't mind wearing that, but usually I like to just be in a t-shirt and a jacket if it's cold. It's weird because I just have never liked, even today, I don't really care for long sleeve like sweaters. Uh, you know, I mean, I'm not the one who wears those, nice woven sweaters at Christmas time. You won't catch me in one of those. I just am not into those. But if you have anybody who's on the spectrum, it could be somebody in your family or maybe one of your employees, take note if they seem to have difficulty and they're not able to explain why, because sometimes you might want to ask, just ask if maybe there's something about what they're wearing or what they're having to wear that may be an issue for them. And you should try to make reasonable accommodations for somebody in that situation. Obviously, you should for not just somebody on the autism spectrum, but for anybody with a disability. But it's true that maybe if you at least ask, and maybe if you ask if there's some issue, that it'll help somebody in that situation. It could be one of your employees, or maybe if you're at a school, maybe it could be one of your students, you know, and it would probably help them, be able to do better in class if they didn't have that inhibition, because they're uncomfortable in whatever shirt or whatever it is that they're wearing. Maybe that's something that the parents ought to know about. But those are things that are important, and those are things that are matter. I've got another video up where I talk about those on the spectrum having acute and specific interests in things, and how it's hard for them to express them, and sometimes that can be an obstacle to interpersonal relationships. And thankfully, since I'm married, I am happy to have the interpersonal relationship thing, uh, have come through quite a great deal better than it ever was. Not that I didn't have any relationships before I was married, but if you can help affirm people on the spectrum like that, even when it comes to things like the clothes they're wearing and what that may be and why that may be an issue to them, that can be a tremendous help. So keep that in mind, and I'll see you on the next voyage. This is the captain signing off.